Right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Paul. If you are new here on this channel, we talk about all things study abroad. And you often would see Alfred's face, but sometimes you'll see my face and then you see other people's faces. But here I am today bringing you another episode of a very important study abroad video. And as I'm sure you can probably tell, we have a very special guest today who is going to be talking through some very important things to us. Actually, what we're going to be talking about is mainly visa and how, from his experience as an admissions associate, what you should be looking out for, and what you should be thinking about in terms of preparing for your visa interview. But before that, he's going to walk us through some of his own experiences and some of what his experiences have taught him in terms of ideas on admission, on schools, on funding, on basically everything that is important. And I have Kevin Vicker here, who is the Associate Vice President of International Education at Park University. So, Kevin, welcome to the YouTube channel today.
It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. As you can tell, we have so many students who are interested in studying abroad. Most of our students are coming from different places in Africa: North Africa, South Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and so on and so forth. And many of them have several hundreds of questions. So I'm really excited that you're here and you're going to share some of your own experience with us. But first of all, let us get to know you a little bit more.
Sure.
So tell us about Park University. Tell us about your role there and how that, plays out in the visa and admissions process.
Sure. I've been working in international admissions for about 20 years at various different institutions, both public and private institutions. I've been at Park here about 8 years. And at Park, we have the pleasure of hosting about 500 international students from over 70 countries. So we have a very diverse group of students that we help throughout the whole process, from the initial contact all the way through beyond graduation and beyond, through their job success and searches. So in terms of our role here at Park, we're able to offer students a really good quality education with small classes at one of the most affordable prices for a private school. So, but we have a lot of experience helping students through the visa process with the ups and downs, the challenges, the changes throughout the years. So we really try to offer a personal approach and do a lot of mock interviews and things that will help students throughout the whole process, because it is different for everybody, because everybody is different and they have they're in a different point in their career, they're at a different point in their academic journey. And so one key point, just from the start, is students really have to determine their goals, why they want to study in the US, what their career goals are. There's not a cookie cutter, or as we say in the US, a cookie cutter, but there's not one or two answers that you can just say, give this, and that's because everyone's unique, and the visa officers are looking for authenticity. They're looking for people that are telling the truth, that have done their research, that have done their preparation, and there's no shortcuts to that. So the successful applicants we have, of course, it's a subjective decision. You have 3 minutes to explain yourself of why you want to study in the US and who's going to pay for it and why they can pay for it. Those are the questions that are generally asked, or the answers that they're seeking.
That's right.
So anyways, that's a little bit about myself. It's a pleasure to work with students. It's a joy to see students be successful throughout the process. And, we do our best to try to give students resources that can assist them throughout everything. And sometimes they have to encounter some challenges and some denials before they get approved. So
that's awesome. Like 20 years of working with students internationally, that's a whole lot of experience. We're going to get to the visa side, and I see that you already have really good advice that you're giving. We're going to get that in a minute. But before we get there, somebody who's looking for an opportunity, right? Somebody who's watching this and, wants to study abroad. Let's assume the person has the qualifications. Just heard about Park University through this channel and wants to apply to Park University. What are you going to tell the person? What are some of the popular programs that international students would often opt for? What are the funding opportunities? What goes into the application? What do you look forward to, and things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, here at Park, we have a variety of great programs in business-related fields, medical-related, both nursing and healthcare administration-related fields, as well as technology. So information systems and business analytics or computer science at the undergraduate level as well. So we offer, bachelor's programs, master's programs in those specific areas. So students are sometimes opting for the STEM majors, specifically information systems, that can offer them, employment, 3 years employment after graduation versus the 1 year employment opportunity with the other programs. So those are kind of the common majors. And for Park, we, have a pretty straightforward process. Of course, we have an online application, and students right now email the documents to us in one email, and then we process from there. And so general admission requirements are there. We do require, statements of purpose and CV and all those requirements we can make available. Right. But the thing I want to make sure students understand is that they're more than just a number. We are here to help assist them through. We do group chats, we do WhatsApp, we do all kinds of different things to try to connect and make sure the students understand that we're here to offer that personalized approach. And we're located in Kansas City. It's a growing area, and we're hosting the World Cup coming up. So it's an exciting place to be and exciting times to be here, and a lot of opportunities. So yeah, that's a little bit about Park. So if they're interested in any of those subject areas, we'd love to assist them in that.
Yeah. Before we go back to Kevin and continue with the conversation, I want to take a moment to share with you about Kimber Health. So as an international student or a visitor in the US, health insurance is going to be one of the biggest expenses that you are going to be spending money on. And actually, for a student, health insurance is required. And one of the ways of cutting down costs is to shop out there for quality, top-notch health insurance options, but would not require so much money from your already tight budget. And Kimber Health is one of the top ways of reducing costs on health insurance without compromising on the quality of healthcare that you are going to be receiving. If you are in New York, this health insurance is actually free for you. So if you are coming to school in New York, or you're visiting New York, especially for my students, if you're going to any school at all that is located in New York, you must sign up for Kimber Health. It is a great way to waive the insurance options that your school is going to give you or is asking you to sign up for. Even if your school decides not to waive that insurance for you, you can still have Kimber Health alongside your school's insurance, which is going to guarantee you complete healthcare. Kimber Health covers everything medical. They cover dental, they cover eye, they cover maternity, they cover eyewear, they cover medical equipment and things that you need to be comprehensively well taken care of. If you're outside of New York, you can also have access to Kimber Health, and that's going to be at a reduced cost, not free. It's going to be at a reduced cost, and I guarantee you it's going to be way cheaper than any other insurance options out there. So if you're coming from anywhere around the world and you're looking for insurance options that would save you cost but would not compromise on quality, check out Kimber Health. Let's go back to the video. Viewers, this is from the horse's own mouth, they say, right? This is from the associate director of education at Park University himself, right? This is
absolutely, and I think for Park, for the students we have, and we have a lot of students from Ghana, Kenya, we have students from Nigeria, we have students from all over, and so I think they find us to be a good affordable option. We have scholarships available as well that we offer for students, ranging from $6,000 to $3,000. So there's there's good opportunities there as well. So I think students find those attractive too.
That's nice. So viewers, like you heard it there's the opportunity to get funding. There are programs across different disciplines and different subfields. There are opportunities to interact with other international students like you. If you're coming from Africa, rest assured, you're going to see faces from Kenya, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from all these African countries, which means that you're going to network in a way that you are fairly familiar with, but also get the opportunity to interact with other people that you're not familiar with, which is nice. One popular question, Kevin, that people have is, do you have, application waivers? Because that's one thing that a lot of students want to know. Like, if I apply to Park University, are they going to waive my application fee for me? Usually that helps, especially if students are applying to multiple schools.
Yeah, we do have a process of which they can do that. If they can reach out to me directly about that, we can kind of work through that with them on an individual basis. So I think that's the best way to kind of go through that, and what we can put our information in that area, but in the contact information. But yeah, I think we're willing to help students with that. At the same time, obviously funding is a big thing, and students should be understanding. We can get into that, of course, with the visa process, but we do have waiver codes available.
That's good. I like that. All of that's fun. So again, consider Park University if you're watching this. This is your chance. But let's get into the main topic for today here, which is the visa process. So I have my admission letter. I've gone through the I-20 process. I have my I-20. What next? What do I do?
Yeah. So the first thing, I think best advice I give is the preparation for the visa really starts before you've done all that process. Right. It should at least start before. I know sometimes students they think, okay, I'm going to get the I-20, get that process done first, and then I'll think about the visa. But the process of thinking about the visa, you have to look at it holistically, right? Correct. Because you have to figure out where you are in your situation, right? And what you want to study, why you want to study this. Because when you apply, you're applying for a certain program.
That's right.
If the graduate level, of course, undergrad, it can be a little bit more general, and they don't expect you at the visa office to have everything figured out as an 18-year-old student. But you still need to have goals and aspirations, and so all that should be what you're thinking about before you even apply and apply for a specific program, especially because it has to make sense as you're working your way through the process. When you're preparing for the visa interview, it has to make sense in the visa officer's mind why you're studying this subject, how it aligns with your career goals, how it aligns with your passion. And so it's extremely important. And also figuring out who will be your solid financial base of support. Okay, yeah, scholarship can help.
Yeah.
In rare cases, students get very, very substantial scholarships, but generally speaking, even if you have a small scholarship, you need to have figured out someone close to you that is going to be committed to your education. And typically it can be a parent or brother, sister. They can live in the US. That's helpful if they have a US bank account, but even if not, they need to be someone that you can trust and that the visa officer can trust, because sometimes students will go in there with uncles, aunts, cousins, friends, employers even, but one boss will change and the funding is poofing into thin air, so so there's all kinds of situations, but so you need to be thinking about all those factors as you start the process, and of course as you move into the visa interview.
Yeah, that's really good. So if I heard you correctly, think holistically. It begins, the visa preparation process begins even before you fill out your form. It begins right from
Yeah.
the initial stages of considering what programs you want to apply to and schools you want to apply to and so on and so forth. You also talked about the fact that your goals are important, like why you want to study a thing is very important because you would have to demonstrate that to the visa officer when you go to the embassy for the interview. And then you also talked about funding, right? The legitimacy of who is sponsoring, where the money is coming from, whether the person's in the US, outside the US, how close the person is to you. Is it an aunt? Is it a parent? And so on and so forth. And all of the dynamics that go with that. So these are the three very important things that we all and you all should be thinking about. I have two sort of follow-up questions, but when you did mention like aunt sponsorship and uncle sponsorship, it just struck a chord in my mind because that's a very popular line of sponsorship for a lot of the Ghanaian and Nigerian students, for example. And so I just want to kind of ask you a personal question. How do you feel about that as somebody who sees a lot of applications? I'm sure you process a lot of I-20s and you see all of these students coming in with uncle sponsorships and auntie sponsorships. What are your feelings? Like, how do you process that?
Well, I mean, I think we know that that term can be broadly applied sometimes in the African context. In the U.S., we have specific uncle is your brother or your sister of your parent, right? But I know it's applied differently, and we know that, and the visa officers know that, right? So you have to be aware of that, and if you're going to do that, one thing I suggest is, if possible, have them make prepay some kind of tuition deposit or prepaid funding to show the intentionality of that sponsorship. It doesn't guarantee you a visa, but it does show some intentionality of, okay, this is a real person it's going to actually fund me. And then also maybe take the additional documentation from your sponsor, such as not just a bank statement, but maybe a CV or a salary statement of annual or monthly salary designations. So, if you, again, sometimes the visa officers, they don't really even look at the paperwork too much, but the fact that you can say that you have it, and that you, if they want to look at it, fine, but you say, okay, you can look at the salary, you can look at this, so you can build some credibility.
That's right.
To your sponsor, because especially if they are your aunt and uncle, it's not impossible, for the visa to be approved, but it does add a level of, well, why aren't your parents doing this, right?
Why are your parents?
And why is it your aunt or uncle? Yeah, where are they? Why are they not? So maybe you have to explain, okay, here's my parents' situation, here's my aunt and uncle situation, and
that's right.
Here's what they do, and so on and so forth. So, and have documents to back up those claims. So, I think that's kind of how we look at it. And we try to counsel students as much as possible to provide those things, and help them as much as we can. So
that's right. I think you did mention something really important. Like, we all understand, like uncle, relative, whatever that relationship might be, can be applied broadly. But it's not just about stating that; it's about going the extra mile to demonstrate the actual availability of the funds. And I like the tip that you gave that sometimes making a tuition deposit helps, and then going beyond bank statements, for instance, like providing a CV, providing a payment slip, or some extra documents that actually demonstrates that this person is able to pay for your education. That clears the suspicion if there is. And I like the way you said it. Like, I don't think that a lot of our students, at least, think about a tuition deposit as a way, at least one of the ways of strengthening the source of, like, this kind of sponsorship that you have through a relative and through other people. So I like that you bring that up, and I hope that people consider that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's always, preparation is huge. Attention to the details, preparation of your situation. And it sounds very basic, but I can't tell you how many times it breaks my heart when students they don't prepare well, and they rely on other people to try to prepare things for them. Yeah. And whether it's an agency or a other person or whatever it is, they not taking ownership of the process and sometimes they're just not prepared, and they're spending money and resources, and they're just not, they don't have it together. Now, sometimes I've had students, just to be honest, that are prepared, that have everything, and then they still have denial for some reason. They can get another chance, but the percentages, are go up when you're really prepared and you have all these things in order. You're giving yourself the best chance to succeed.
Yes.
And you're setting yourself apart, because one thing I tell students is that these officers, technically, they have a very difficult job. They have to vet students in 3 to 5 minutes, and they cannot be sitting there going through every detail of every applicant.
No.
They have hundreds of applications a day.
Yes.
And and it's not an exciting job, I would imagine, and so I think you have to set yourself apart by these attention to detail that make it different, and be friendly and interactive, confident, and it's about that too, and that's being so they can rest assured that you've paid attention to these things, and you've prepared, and that you're ready to accomplish your goals. So
I like that. A lot of very good things here, like attention to details, as best as you can, doing things yourself so that you can have some control over what goes into your own application, instead of delegating that to somebody like an agent, or somebody else that you don't really know, or cannot trust fully. And then also going all out to prepare, do everything that you can so that your chances will increase, right? It doesn't mean that it guarantees it, but at least it reduces the chances that your visa will be denied. I like that. That's a really good one. One important question that I want to ask you. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention, part of that preparation is attention. When you're applying, what schools are you applying to? Why are you applying to those schools? Just knowing about the school. Yeah. Sometimes students that just don't know about the school and about the program specifically they're applying to. It's amazing. Yeah. We can sit back and try to look through and say, okay, well, the denial rate's this, that, and the other. But then, do you know about the school? Do you know when the school was, founded, or different things? Not just facts, but facts are important to know. But more importantly is then why are you choosing this specific school? And so the why park is usually going to be the first question they ask, and usually students maybe either don't know about some cases they may not know enough about us, or some cases they just know facts and they don't know things specific to their program. Yeah. So they spit out a few facts, but that's not the end of it. They have to know why they want to do their program as it fits into their goals. So yeah, that's correct. That's actually the follow-up question I was going to ask you. That do you have tips, some ideas that you can give to students? For instance, a student is coming to Park University, and how should a student think about answering questions like, why did you choose Park University? Are there things that you would point the student to think about in specific terms, not just in the facts of it's this wide, it's this fancy, it's in Kansas, it's not, but the specifics of what might get a visa officer's attention? Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the answer differs between, based on anybody, but I mean, I would always, if I was in the position, I would mention how I heard about Park, whether that's through a friend or a relative or whatever. And then I would say, go into, okay, what does Park mean to me in terms of the program? Okay, I want to study MBA in finance, and I and Park has a really great finance program in terms of the class size and the affordability. And I work in a bank, and I'm, I need this to achieve a promotion and to achieve my goals of advancing in the finance industry. And that's, and I believe that the education at Park can really help me get to that point. And I'm presenting, of course, my CV and everything there that can back up what I'm saying. But it doesn't have to be a long answer, but it has to be a specific answer, not just, well, Park was founded in 1875 and it has 70 people from 70 countries and students from 70, those are great facts and very true. And we have a long history of that, but Anyone can read a website and see that, right? So you have to connect it with your story and your situation. Even if you're just graduating from college or just graduating from high school, explain yourself to that end and why you have this dream. And for Park, a lot of students choose us again because of the personal attention along with the affordability and then the diversity. So those are kind of the big reasons. And of course, our location is nice too. Cost of living is lower here. So sometimes if you talk about that compared to the West Coast or East Coast, in our case, that's a helpful thing to note. Some students note that, and every visa officer will know that, generally speaking, the cost of living is lower in the Midwest versus those two other options. So those are some things that students generally talk about for sure.
Yeah, I see why it is important that you do things yourself and you are involved in the application process and you do it based on your own goals, because then it's easier for you to identify something about the school that you're going to that it's really attractive to you and reasons why you want to go there, right? But if it's done for you without yourself, then it's kind of difficult to really understand why you're choosing a particular school, and it's almost impossible for you to answer. But I think you did make a very important point about cost of living and things like that. And what I'm learning from that is it has something to do with the funds, right? The funds that you need, because if you're in the Northeast like I am, right, it's super expensive, and that generally means higher cost of living, and your living expense is going to go extremely high. And if you already do not have the funds for it, then it sort of makes it difficult for you to explain to the visa officer how you are going to get through with your funds. But if you are generally studying at a good place like Park University, excellent school, the living conditions are not that expensive, and you get some funding, then it's easier to explain, right? It's much more bearable, right? That's
Absolutely.
amazing. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And so that's very, very true. And you shouldn't shy away from, sometimes they'll ask if students have relatives in the US and things of that nature. You shouldn't shy away from the truth. You can imagine being a visa officer can be probably a pretty frustrating job, because you're having students come in and tell you things and a lot of stories, spin a lot of tales. Yeah. And so after a few weeks of that, I'm sure they can tell
you're already tired of it.
yeah, and they can tell when someone's not spinning the same tale that they've heard 30 times in one day or whatever. So when you're being genuine, I think that's a big piece of it. But I know that's and that's a big part of it.
That's right. Can we talk about things like anxiety and confidence and presentation skills and being unique and authentic, right? We talked about people repeating answers all the time, and visa officers getting tired of it. And what sorts of tips do you give to your students around these kinds of things? I get a lot of questions about, I'm so unsure, I don't know, I cannot sleep, it's a few days to my interview, I couldn't speak, so I was denied. How should students get over things like that?
Well, I think there's a few things that come to mind. Number one is preparation. As I said before, if you're prepared and kind of generally the questions that'll be asked, and you practice, that's why we do mock interviews every Friday for people to observe and also practice themselves. And we play the role, our staff plays the roles of a visa interviewer, and we interview the students. So, and we give them feedback on the answers and things of that nature. So preparation, again, is number one thing. In terms of the interview itself, I think that, you can not worry as much about saying exactly the right thing as what the ideas you want to say. As long as you're getting across the ideas that you want to say, that's the most important thing. Okay, so don't worry about exact word choice, but worry about like the general idea that you want to present, right? Yeah. So I think that's an important piece of it. Again, the genuineness, and I think that these officers don't expect a perfect presentation. It's not a presentation like you're giving in a class or something. It's something that it's an interaction, and they need to take away a few main points and genuine things that you're trying to tell them. So, practically speaking, deep breaths,
Deep breaths,
being confident,
Mm-hmm.
which comes from your preparation, and just listen, to the visa officer too, because sometimes the students, they get into all in their heads what they want to say, but they're not listening to what the visa officer is asking them. So then they give an answer that wasn't what they asked for, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece too, is just make sure, again, it's a conversation. Okay, so listen to what they're asking you, answer what they're asking you. Don't go into you don't have to answer in a long form. Just give a very good answer to what they're asking you. And if you get into that situation, you become obviously nervous. These are people. You have to realize these are people. They're visiting your country. They they're trying to do the best they can, I believe. And so just try to again, preparation, but it's just be ready to interact and to express yourselves. And even I've had students ask them how they like living in their country. How's their day going? Because if you can imagine that kind of situation and put yourself in their shoes, it helps you kind of think about it a little bit more in a different way. So eye contact is a thing in the U.S.
Eye contact,
you can make eye contact. Now, sometimes these officers, they'll just be typing away, but if you can try to make eye contact, connect with them as a human being as well, because so I think that's important to consider. And it comes down to that practice and preparation piece of it. So
a lot of really good things here. I like everything you just said. What would you say about memorizing answers? Like, people read a ton of things. Like, maybe they watch our YouTube video and I would give a sample answer and Alfred would give a sample answer to just illustrate something, and then people memorize it and they want to replicate that, or they read something on the blog. Memorization. What would you say about that?
Well, I think that can be a difficult thing, right? So that's why we do, that's why you need to do some mock interview situations, because and not just memorize. So what I try to do from a standpoint of public speaking or presentation is, I don't personally write out. This is my style. I don't write out my whole speech. What I'll do is I'll put bullet points of topics that I want to cover, and then I'll let the conversation go from there. Okay,
that's right.
So let's say they ask you why Park. Okay, I have 3 points that I know why I want to choose Park, and talking about, I want to talk about affordability, or I want to talk about personal attention, I want to talk about diversity. Okay, those are the 3 points.
Yeah.
But I'm not writing out exactly the answer, right? I'm just saying, okay, here's what I want to cover, and talking about, again, specifics, but you're not memorizing a speech in that sense. So I think that's one thing I suggest is, when you're doing that, because it can be tempting just to write out everything and then memorize it, but that's not, I know that some educational systems, still promote that in the educational setting, but in the US, it's important to note that it's not like, most of our classes are going to be interactive, project-based learning, practical-based learning. And they're not asking students to memorize facts and figures by and large, right? So that's, again, education system, and you have to learn about that in the US, is that in the classroom, that's not, and it comes out in the visa process as well. Like, they expect you to articulate your goals, articulate why you want to do what you want to do, in the context of a classroom, why you want to present your points in this way.
That's right.
So, and it's a challenge because there's AI and there's lots of things, right? But the idea to critically think and to express oneself plays itself out, right? So I think that's an important thing. So I think memorization, I know that students tend to want to do that. But I would encourage them to just take a blank sheet of paper and just write some bullet points and go from there, and then practice as well. So
that's right.
That's kind of my advice.
I like that. I like that. I remember telling a few students, don't think in terms of all the words that you need to say about a particular thing, but think in points first. Like think about what point do I want to get across, and then later on find the words to express those points. And I think you said it in a much eloquent way, and I hope that students really get the idea over here. The other thing that you just pointed out is like being so afraid to be informal with the visa officer. Like you actually said you encourage students to maybe determine what's going on, but also ask the visa officer a few questions like, how do you like it in my country? Like, how's your day going so far? Maybe I like your shirt or something like that. What's the importance of trying to be informal versus like, super rigid and so scared and, what's the importance of that in your opinion?
Well, I think because you have to understand U.S. culture a little bit, because we generally have a very informal style of interaction in a workplace setting. So it's not as structured as some other contexts. So think of it like that. It's not we're not in a formal lecture hall, and things of that nature. It's an informal setting in the sense that you're having an interaction with the individual. So I think
that's right.
That's just something that need to keep in mind as they move forward in that interview. Because but I do encourage students to dress professionally. Whatever professional attire looks like in your cultural context is what I recommend. You can wear African formality, African attire as well. That's fine, but you present yourself as that you prepared. Okay. You don't have to be perfect. I wouldn't necessarily go suit and tie the whole thing necessarily, but some students feel more comfortable with that. Do what makes what you're comfortable with. But, I think you can be professionally looking, but at the same time, be ready just for more informalities and informal kind of interaction per se. Because again, they're going through so many people every day and stuff like that. So I think that's and they see this. You can think of the same answers they get over and over and over again.
Yes, I like that. So it's important if you're a nurse, dress professionally. If you're a doctor, if you're a police officer, whatever, like dress professionally. And professionally might mean multiple things. Definitely, just like Kevin said. What can you say about like? It's still in light of the whole thing about like being casual and thinking more conversationally and balancing that with being professional and formal. A lot of people think, at least in my own experience coaching students, a lot of people think that the visa interview is like it's a defense, like it's me going to make a big claim and defend it to the core so that I can convince the visa officer. But here we are talking about it being a conversation and understanding why and explaining your reasons and so on and so forth. So what advice would you give to a student who's thinking that, oh yeah, this is like really serious thing that I need to go and defend?
I think this is similar. The way I describe it to students is to try to understand this is a good microcosm of what a job interview might look like in the US. Right. If you had a 3-minute job interview, which usually you're not going to have that's a big difference, right? It's going to be probably 30 minutes or an hour. But if you had a job interview, it would be figuring out if you're a good candidate for the position, right? If you have the skill set, if you have the communication skills that are, and you have a why, right? For the position, that you're passionate about it, that you're humble enough to learn more about the process and everything. So about you're teachable and all those things. So I think this is that's the way I kind of describe it. It's not a courtroom as you said. It's a
it's not a courtroom. I like that. It's not a courtroom.
It's not a courtroom. You're not up for trial. It's no one's going to throw you in jail after the visa interview as long as you don't break any laws or anything. But like I just think like students have to look at it like, okay, I need to be am I a good candidate? And that's the job interview is probably the best equation that I would have for that. And so you're trying to express yourself of why you're the best candidate. And if I had 5 candidates for one position and they all came and said the same thing,
Yes.
then I would, in my view, none of them are qualified because none of them are. They're all giving me the same answers. So
The same
you know,
answers. Yes.
exactly. So think of it like that. If you're a supervisor and you have, you're hiring for a certain position that's more than just maybe data entry or something, but it requires communication skills, it requires leadership skills, it requires management
Correct.
skills.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out, who can be the best person for that position beyond, and not giving a memorized answer or not knowing about the position, you're not knowing about the industry, would tell me that you're not ready for that.
Certainly.
And so that's the way you kind of have to look at it is, what would you do if you're trying to prepare for that kind of position and you knew that, you had a chance amongst other candidates for the position, but you were trying to put yourself in a position where you're the best fit. So
that's right. I like that. Very good advice. We should, as we wrap up here, let's also talk a little bit about students who are denied, because the students who get denied maybe once, twice before they get approved. So there's a possibility that some students will prepare very well, do everything right, and be denied. And there are other students who may not know what they need to prepare for, but will get denied and would like to apply again. So I'm out there, I have been denied once, I want to go back again. What advice would you give to students like that?
Yeah, so I think basically they would have to demonstrate a change in their situation, their circumstance.
Yeah.
Basically, whether it's a sponsorship issue, there's probably two. Obviously, the two things they look at are your intention to be a student in the United States.
That's
Are you going to be a student? Do you have a direction of what you want to do, why you want to do it? And number two is the financial part, right? So if you get denied a visa, you have to think of it. You're going to get the same. Likely, you'll get the same 214B slip as most people get, right? And then students are like, "Why was I denied?" And I ask, "Why wasn't I?" Well, they got this slip. But then, what was reevaluate the interview in your mind? What nonverbal, from the interview perspective, like you can kind of tell, like when they asked a certain question and they maybe weren't satisfied with the answer. So just think about the interaction and the questions that were asked, and then think about evaluate your own situation. In terms of program of study, because sometimes students they have a program of study that doesn't necessarily match their background, which is okay. But then you could talk to the visa officer. You have to explain why you're shifting. Okay, so if I'm an engineering student and now I'm going to study nursing, okay, so why?
There should be a reason, of course.
You have to reason, and so maybe you didn't explain that enough, or maybe you weren't able to convince on the financial part, in terms of the your documentation or the things you presented. So you have to rehash, and as long as you're able to correct some of those situations or those issues, again, I would inquire to your in our case, our staff is here to kind of assist with that, and in a majority of cases, I can tell why you were denied. In some cases, there's a few cases where it's not possible, or they're just really prepared and everything. And but I would say that's probably only 5 to 10% of the cases where I could say, well, they were really prepared, and maybe there was some kind of situation, miscommunication or whatever, and they were denied. But in 90% of the cases, I can say, well, you probably, if they tell me exactly what happened, exactly the answers that were given. In most cases, I can give a general guess of the reasoning behind that. So
I like that.
It's just kind of going back, and it doesn't matter, by the way, if some students think they have to wait a year, 2 years. It's not necessarily the case. As long as they're able to correct those issues, whether it be program of study, direction, or financial issues, as long as they're able to correct that, they can go again, as the appointment dates indicate, and try again. So.
I like that. That's certainly true. And at what point would you tell a student, maybe you should take a break? Because I have students that have been denied 4 times, 5 times, 6 times.
Yeah.
And they keep going back every other month. At what point you tell us to
Yeah.
please take a break?
Yeah, no, I think after they've been denied at least 2 times, they should really reevaluate like what's going on, right? Now, a key point is that when you go for a visa interview, technically, when you go for another one at the same embassy, most of the time they will give you a different visa officer to kind of provide an objective viewpoint on the application. So, but yeah, I would say like 2 or 3 times you're going to have to self-evaluate. And there's some students, to be completely honest, just don't have the funding, and coupled with that, don't have the mechanism to be able to secure enough funding to study abroad. I mean, that's just a reality for some students. They're going to have to look elsewhere, or maybe online options, or whatever the case may be. Like, they're going to have to reevaluate what they're doing. So I think, those are some situations where you really need to think about the direction and things of that nature. Because one thing that we do here is we require the deposit after a denial. So we require a tuition deposit after denial, because we don't want to just keep, deferring students again and again and again without some kind of demonstration of support from their sponsor. And sometimes the sponsors are like, well, why do I have to pay that? I'm like, well, no, it's for your benefit. Like, you want to show that you're kind of minimally, you're trying to do something for the student. You're trying to help. You're trying to support the student, and you're trying to demonstrate that. So we're not going to kind of go over and over again with that. So that's one thing we do. And in addition to offering the other coaching, but yeah, it's not. I mean, there's opportunities, but yeah, you definitely have to reevaluate and consider some things. And regardless of which school you're going to, I would reach out to that school and you inquire. Maybe, if say, hey, can I have a short interview to explain my situation with that school? Especially if you're denied, 100%. Reach out to the school, tell them you're denied, and request a meeting with them, like online Zoom. There's no reason why. Of course, some big schools, they don't have time, but again, what does that say? Maybe about what they're trying to offer, request a meeting and ask for feedback. Schools that care about students will be more than willing to have a meeting with you, or link you in with other students that, can offer that, where they can have a group meeting and you can offer the perspective and they can give feedback. So that's 100%. I would recommend that.
Wow. Before we go here, I want to give you 2 chances to say something about, you did mention a few of them, but like how you interact with students one-on-one, the sort of group coaching that you give to people, and the resources that you throw at them so that they can prepare for their visa interview. I want to give you the chance to talk about some of those things that Park University especially has. And then also the last thing would be, what would you say to somebody who is interested in applying to Park University, and how can they reach out to you? Where would they find you?
Yeah, sure. So we offer a few different things. Number one, right off the start, we offer visa tips. We have a sheet that we offer all the students that gives a synopsis or summary of tips that they can consider, which I've just basically described most of those things that I've put together in kind of a resource guide. And number 2 is, obviously I mentioned we have our weekly meetings where you'll meet with our admissions reps, but also with other students from around the world and observe. You don't have to do an interview right away, but you can observe the interviews that other students are getting and learn from that as well. So I think that's, so those are 2 tangible things that we're doing. Also, we have groups, WhatsApp groups, and other connections with in-country students from, like, we have our Kenyan group, we have a Ghana group, we have our Nigerian group, we have WhatsApp groups for new students as well, where they'll share their experiences. And when they get a visa, they'll share their experience with how that went and, questions they were asked. So we have other connection points there as well for students to make. So we also have student ambassadors. that students can connect with directly, that are designated by us as our student liaisons with various our various student populations. So, whether you're from any of those countries, we have student representatives that are ready to assist as well for visa, but also for acclimation and to explain kind of how things work here from a housing standpoint, from any different aspect. So that's some things we offer for the students, and students can connect with us. Of course, our website is park.edu, but also we can post the we can post our email information and contact information as well there, and our other, of course, the WhatsApp and the groups as well. So.
That's right. So yeah, I will take that and I will put that in the video description below. So if you're watching this and you would like to contact Kevin or apply to Park University, which I think you should, look in the video description below. The website will be there, contact information will be there, and I'm sure you can take it from there. Are there any last things that you want to share with us, Kevin?
I mean, I just it's really exciting. We're about ready to have some new students come here, and that's the best time of the year. And my second favorite time of the year is our sash ceremony, and it's a graduation ceremony where we give each student a sash from their country, and they get an opportunity to speak in front of 50 to 100 people and talk about their experience. And we of course we have it live streamed to everyone around the world, and so at the end of the day, those are what drive us as people working in this field. It's those success stories and seeing the transformation that happens in our students' lives, personally and professionally. Students will come up to me years later and be very grateful for all the things that they experienced here. So I think that's what we're about. That's what we want to hope to achieve, and to get students, to that finish line where they onto their next steps, and able to give back to their communities and their families. So I think that drives us, and I think that's something. Just keep the big picture in mind, in terms of how you can serve your community and your family, and how you can give back, because it's about you, obviously, to this dream, but it's about more than you. It's about your community. It's about your family. It's about your country, and beyond. So, I think anything you can do in terms of, and that plays out in the visa interview, when you talk about your passion, why you want to do this, connect it with those things, because that speaks into visa officer's mind, but also your own identity in terms of what you're doing and why you want to doing it. That's why we ask for statements of purpose, by the way, is because we want to know your purpose and why you want to do this. And so that's a one-page thing we require for graduate students, that just says, hey, this is why I want to study it. This is what I'm doing. And so in your own words, not AI, not from another website or whatever, again, express yourself, and that will benefit you in the short term and in the long term, to have to start with the why. I like that. And that's the biggest kind of piece of advice I would have for students, is to start with the why.
I like that. Wow. Thank you very much, Kevin, for coming out here and sharing all these great info so generously. And viewers out there, I hope you benefited from this. And if you did, look in the video description below and reach out to Kevin, or apply to Park University, or find a mentor over there who is going to help you through your application process, especially those of you thinking about applying to Park University. We will come back here again with another episode. I'm sure we are going to try to get Kevin again to come back here and share a little bit more about some of the courses and admission process, especially when the admission cycle is coming up again in September or November, thereabout. But until then, we will see you in another video. Peace.
Thank you.
This is awesome.